Tennis ace Novak Djokovic has dramatically left Melbourne just hours ahead of the start of the Australian Open after the federal court upheld the government's decision to cancel his visa. The Serb boarded a flight to Dubai late last night after he was kicked out of the country following intense scrutiny about his vaccination status and future in the tournament.
Now, the visa saga has gripped headlines worldwide, with the Serbian Prime Minister overnight saying she found it unbelievable and scandalous, and the country's president accusing Australia of torture. We'll get the latest from Belgrade in just a moment. But first, to Steph Ferrier at Melbourne Park and Tom Lowry, who is in Canberra for us today. So, Steph, walk us through the developments overnight.
Good morning, Mads. Well, Novak Djokovic had arrived here with dreams of a 10th Australian Open crown and also to clinch that world record-breaking 21st Grand Slam, which would have catapulted him into the status of the greatest men's tennis player ever. But in the end, he was bundled out before he could even begin his campaign, losing in a very different court to the one behind me, with those three federal court judges unanimous in their decision and ordering him to pay costs. Not long after that decision was reached, we saw those pictures of police escorting Djokovic to the airport and officers flanking him as he boarded that flight to Dubai. And he issued a statement saying that he was extremely disappointed with the decision of the court, and that meant that he could not stay in Australia and participate in the Australian Open. But he went on to say that he respected the court's ruling and would cooperate with the authorities to leave the country. He also added that he wasn't comfortable with the fact that the focus had been on him for the past couple of weeks, and he was now looking forward to the focus being on the game and the tournament that he loves. And we also heard from the ATP, the Association of Professional Tennis Players, saying that it was deeply regrettable that it had come to this, really obviously emphasising the question as to why he was even granted that visa in the first place, and also saying that it did respect the legal decisions made on public health reasons. But the ATP also added that Novak is a real champion of the game, and his absence here at the Australian Open will no doubt be a huge loss for the game. His position, of course, and his spot for this opening round tonight will be taken by what the Australian Open has termed the lucky loser, and there'll be much more of the tennis players' reaction just a little later in sport.
And Tom, we've been hearing from various politicians in Canberra this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mads. The federal government was really sweating on that decision from the federal court yesterday afternoon after losing a court case earlier last week on this matter. So that decision from the federal court to uphold the decision of the Immigration Minister, Alex Hawke, has been warmly welcomed. The government's also been defending the process here in deporting Novak Djokovic, really rejecting the criticism that's been thrown its way and sort of suggesting this is all about strong borders. The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, weighed in overnight, putting out a statement saying this decision was made in the public interest on health, safety and good order grounds, and that Australians have made many sacrifices during the pandemic, and they rightly expect the result of those sacrifices to be protected. The Home Affairs Minister, Karen Andrews, has also responded to suggestions that Australia has perhaps been made to look a bit foolish on the world stage, suggestions made by the Serbian government, among others. Here's a bit of what she's had to say.
I'm very much aware of a lot of the commentary that is happening, but my job as Australia's Home Affairs Minister is to protect our borders, and I am well and truly on the public record of saying that I will do exactly that.
What's been the opposition's reaction?
Labor is supporting the deportation of Novak Djokovic. They say the right call has been made here, but they are sharply critical of the process that got us to this point, saying that Novak Djokovic's visa should never have been approved in the first place. He never should have arrived in the country. And the Shadow Home Affairs Minister, Christina Keneally, says the way this process has been dragged out has been a really poor look on the international stage. Here's a bit of what she's had to say.
Mr. Morrison never should have granted Novak Djokovic that visa in the first place. This is a series of unforced errors on Mr. Morrison's part, and it's a mess on our borders. We are now an international embarrassment thanks to Mr. Morrison's bungles.
Labor also says if the purpose of deporting Novak Djokovic was to avoid causing a bit of an anti-vaccine stir, well, that hasn't worked, as that's exactly what's been created.
OK, Tom and Steph, thanks very much to both of you. Now, over in Serbia, Djokovic's family have described the deportation as scandalous and believe the federal court ruling was political. Our reporter Isabella Higgins is in the capital, Belgrade.
A very bold and very varied reaction here in Serbia from officials. Anger, threats and accusations, and from residents, sadness, frustration and disappointment. Walking around Belgrade today, it was almost impossible to find someone who didn't have an opinion on this. People told us that watching Novak Djokovic play is one of the few occasions where all Serbs can come together and experience joy. So there are certainly many people here who are very disappointed that he won't be going out to Melbourne Park. Almost immediately after this decision, the Serbian government also made a statement. The Prime Minister described this as scandalous and unbelievable. She says it doesn't matter that Djokovic is coming home without a trophy. He will always be a hero here. Another government minister says they are investigating what diplomatic actions they can take against Australia. But perhaps the biggest accusations came from the Serbian president, Alexander Vučić, who accused the Australian government of torturing the tennis star. Let's take a listen to what he said.
For 10 days they were tormenting, dare to say even torturing, because it was not only intellectual but physical torture against Novak Djokovic. And there was something else which was even worse, that was witches' hunt organized against Novak Djokovic, and that guy, just not to forget that he won 9 times Australian Open title, and well, that was totally unnecessary.